Yeah, so Davinci Resolve 19 is officially out of beta. It's out. I've downloaded it. I don't mess with the beta stuff usually, just because I don't feel like testing it. I'm too lazy. And I like my professional tools to be as finished as possible. Ironically, I found 2 bugs now, as of right now, in Davinci Resolve 19 officially, which is that one of them's driving me crazy, but it's fine. It's not a deal breaker. It's just really annoying. I think what's most interesting to me about Resolve 19 is this new Color Splice utility in the color page. So I want to go through and I want to compare it to how I do my methods that it's trying to solve or solving, which is skin tone stuff and color density stuff. Specifically color density stuff. I'm really glad they put this in because of the color density stuff. So let's jump into my program and let's look at it. These are all Blackmagic Pocket 4K, log footage. I believe it's not ProRes anymore. I think I transcoded to H.265. I found a bug right away, not right away, but for some reason it's stuck. It won't. It's stuck in bypass on one of them. That's fine. I'll use the other clips, but that's one of the bugs I found. The other bug I found the other night was when messing with Color Splice. I clicked these enough that they stopped these highlight things, which is what this is actually. They stopped working. So I started clicking on them and they stopped doing stuff. So yeah, it's bugs. It's fine. It is what it is. So, okay, so we got a picture of me and we'll turn off everything. So here's my node tree if you want to look at it. Here's my scopes. The first thing I do is I get it into Rec 709. Oh, turn off that. There we go. And the way I do that is I use a color space transform. There's different ways to do it. You can use color management or you can use a LUT, but I just like color space transform because I like to be able to see it on my node tree. So we do one going from the Blackmagic footage into Davinci Intermediate, and then one on the other end going from Davinci Intermediate into Rec 709, Gamma 2.4. And I don't know who showed me this the other day, but recently somebody was like, put a window, if you want to do skin tones and stuff, just put a window after everything, and then just bring your offset down to full zeros, and that'll make a black frame. There's my window. So that solves one of the problems one of the things that I wish Davinci Resolve would fix about color space transform is when you have stuff color space transformed, if you try to do highlight, it just brings you back to log, which is not super useful. So this window thing kind of solves that for me for, skin tones and stuff. So first thing I usually do is I usually do an exposure adjustment because this looks a little bit dim to my eye. So tiny exposure adjustment. I usually do it in HDR. Yeah, 0.16 difference. So what, 1/10 of a stop or an 1/8 of a stop, I guess, or 1/7 of a stop. I don't know. Not a lot. And then the second thing I do is I do balance, and I've been balancing off skin tone because that's how I've been doing it. There's reasons. So we'll bust the window out, we'll take the scopes out, and it's close to the line, but I want to adjust it just a little bit. I think I just moved, I took a little bit of blue out of the image on the offset, and then I pushed a little bit back in on where's my nose running? On the lift, and there's your perfect skin tones, or thereabout. It just kind of took out yellow-green out of the image a little bit. So, God, why is my nose running? That's insane. Hold on. Allergy attack, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, yeah, and so the next thing I would do is the saturation / density of it all. The way I like to do it is overlay. So you literally just click on it, go to composite mode, overlay, and I found in the key about 20% is good. So there's overlay. If you do a full overlay, it's wild. So 0.2 is kind of where I usually go. And it gives you, I really like the density. So the reason I use overlay versus saturation, which is the sat slider, or HSV or HSL, which I've tried, is it's simpler, but it also, I think of it more filmic for a few reasons. I just think it looks better, but also the overlay brings me back to like film darkroom days where all you're doing with overlay is you're shooting your enlarger image, your light through the film stock onto the media, and an overlay is just adding another one but it's not a full one because it's only 20%. So you're adding a regular one and then 20% of one. And so stuff that is already dense, has color in it, has saturation in it, has exposure in it, is going to be even more dense, even more dark because light's not passing through it. And stuff that is clear, stuff that appears to be white, will stay white. And so, like, if you look at my skin's fairly bright, and so it only gets a little bit dimmer. So the image gets a little bit dimmer, and you can see that off the waveform. But overall, like, not everything gets dimmer because stuff that's already basically white is still white. So if you look at the chip chart, white basically doesn't change value. So I trust it more. It's doing a few things, which that does kind of scare me because I like each node to kind of do one thing so I can turn them off and turn it back on. And it's doing kind of three. It's doing saturation. It's doing saturation density or color density. And then it's also doing a little bit of contrast because they're all kind of related, the way overlay works. Yeah, usually I get scared when it's doing multiple things, but not in this particular case because I'm used to it and I'm comfortable with it and I sort of understand how it's working more or less. The other way you could do it is with saturation. Here's the general saturation slider. Everybody complains about it. It does look weird. There's something about it that I just don't trust. If I were to do just a general saturation adjustment, I would just go into the hue versus sat and bring out my sliders and do it that way instead. Just moving saturation around this way, it still feels kind of scary. I don't know. There's something about it. Even color boost, which is supposed to only grab stuff that's already saturated and make it more saturated, I don't trust that either. So for some reason, I don't like the mathematics on saturation just as a general thing anymore. The other way to do it that a lot of people do is HSL or HSV, which is you go into Color Space and you pick HSL, HSV. We'll do HSL, for instance. We'll change this to HSL. And then you go into channels and you get rid of everything except for the middle one because then you have full control over S in HueSat luminance, so S. Yeah, so basically green becomes your control. So instead of having just the slider on the bottom to control sat, now you have lift, gamma, gain, low, medium, high, and then total to control it. So it's a little bit more useful, but it's not great. Yeah, it's not how I like to do it. And that brings us to Color Slice. I'll even turn off my balance because I think Color Slice is interesting. Color Slice is sort of solving problems, but I feel like it's also adding problems. It's solving problems because, hey, there's a density slider now, which is awesome. So, bam, we automatically have color density, which is cool. It goes from 0 to 1, -1 to 1, which is interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. So it doesn't feel like there's a lot of adjustment there. Don't really understand density depth. Saturation, I don't understand how this saturation is different from this other than the values. And balance and depth, I don't know. Again, hue, I don't know how that's different than hue down here. I have a feeling these are the same as that, except for the density one. I like that it gives you red, skin tone, yellow, green. I wish these graphs gave you skin tone on it, because they give you everything else, but they don't give you skin tone. This is how I do a lot of my stuff. Because I like to be able to pull up, if I'm changing a hue, I like to be able to pull up the hue versus sat and go, okay, this was too high and this was too low. Okay, I can walk it back, or I can, adjust it, that kind of thing. Whereas on this, it's all together, which is, I feel like you're gonna get lost in the sauce. You're gonna end up in the weeds doing it this way, but it's interesting. I appreciate that skin tone is here though, because I do think skin tone, again, I start with skin tone when I'm balancing. Once I'm in a Rec 709 environment, exposure and then balancing for skin tones. So that's nice. This row you can control where red and where skin tones lie, and it's basically this. It's one of these ones where you're getting everything, but you're also getting the skin tone on there, which is cool. And then center, so you can, like, for instance, skin tone, it lets you do highlight But again, the problem when you're in, Color Splice Transform is it's still log, but sure, it's kind of pulling a key, but it's kind of not. It's basically doing this, but it's pretending it's a key, which it's kind of cool because the last thing I would do for footage in general is pull a key. I like my adjustments to affect everything, even if I'm in, like 16-bit RAW versus 8-bit, footage that's not very flexible. I still like adjustments that I make to affect everything. That's why I do an exposure adjustment to just full exposure. Oh, hold on. I do a balance adjustment that affects all of the balance. Like for the 8-bit reasons, it breaks the image not as quickly. But I just feel like the more you do little narrow keys that are like favoriting different things, here's the bug. Yep, here's the bug. Found the bug. Great, these stopped working. It's fine, I don't really need it. Anyway, it's pretending it's a key, and so you can change, where the center of the skin tone is supposed to be, and you can change the hue of the skin tone, which is really useful. Honestly, I would do this, and then yeah, I can, get my skin tones right where I want them to be. I'm pretty happy with that. That's a way to do it instead of balancing. That's kind of the same thing as just changing the hue of everything, or changing, more specifically, it's more like hue versus hue, and then you're grabbing skin tones and you're walking them that way. So basically it's the same thing. You don't have control of how far away the control points are, which is kind of scary to me, but you have a little bit of that. Like you can change the center. Anyway, these bottom row things, one's density and one is saturation, sure. But the issue is, like for instance, in Color Slice, I think what I would want Color Slice for the most for is the density aspect. So let's pop in density, but first let's turn off, let's turn on overlay and grab a still. I don't have my balance adjustment because I'm not going to Color Slice balance adjustment either. We'll call this overlay. So what we can do is, on the right side is overlay, on the left side is Color Slice with full density. And this is what really opened my eyes to what is the difference, because I understand overlay and I trust overlay and I'm good with overlay. So Color Slice, all I did was I did full density, and overlay is on the right. So overlay, the brighter things are bright. The darker things seem to be more or less the same darkness, exposure, dimness, I guess. But the brighter things in overlay are already brighter. But what's crazy is, like, for instance, okay, so the left side of this red chip is the Color Slice. So I can bring this down and I can match it, walk it back, something there maybe. And if you look, it's still much darker. Or actually, it's actually brighter now than the overlay in the dark parts. But that's it. So it's for some reason it's not consistent. So you could mess with the density depth too, or the exposure maybe, or the contrast. I don't know. That's what's so crazy, is overlay just seems to be solving all my problems, whereas this Color Slice seems to be adding more and more problems into the equation. So I could increase the contrast a little bit and then walk the density back. And I could probably get these pretty close to matching. Yeah, so I don't hate it. It does seem like it's a little too saturated, a little too artificial for me. Because if I wanted to make it that, that level of saturated, we can grab a still. Call this Slice. If I wanted to make the overlay that wild on my face, you could just increase the overlay. Like that's 0.4, for instance, and there we go. And it's kind of the same thing. We can even make it match probably. Something like that. There we go. But if you look, for some reason the overlay still, it it behaves differently. The math is different from color slice to overlay, and that's really the issue. And so I understand how the overlay is behaving, just I guess based on feel, just because I've been using it a lot. Whereas color slice, I feel like I'm starting completely over, and it's a completely different set of rules. That's my real concern. So good things about color slice. There's a density slider, awesome. Skin tone control, and now it's back. That's so weird. Skin tone, is its own dedicated thing. I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, I'd rather go with overlay just because I like overlay more. That's really what it is. So I think it's going in the right direction. I'd be curious what the math is for all this kind of stuff, specifically this top row with density and then density depth and then sat and sat depth and sat balance. I don't know. I'm not really clear on what that refers to and how that works. And then more importantly, it's doing a bunch of stuff all at once. And so if I mess with something and then I want to change it later, I'm going to have to really push my nose in to find out what I change with all these sliders, because there's so many details. Whereas if I'm doing a hue versus hue, I can just look at the graph and I know what I messed with this hue versus hue, and I can change it. And again, hue versus sat for the same reason. All these kind of things, they all kind of get their own thing. And so yes, I'm a little bit hypocritical in that overlay does a few things for me all at once, but I trust it. Whereas color slice, I feel like I'm going to lose if I come back and try to change something. I'm going to lose what I'm trying to change just because there's too many things happening at once. I feel like if we want to do color slice right, color slice, one page should be this whole row, density and all this kind of stuff, and there should be some kind of graph to understand how to do it. And then the slices themselves, sure, I don't necessarily need them, I don't think. And then the actual hue controls need to be their own thing, but then they're basically the same thing as, hue versus hue and hue versus sat. So I don't know that so I guess I just really only care about the top row for color slice. So yeah, and that's really what it is. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys care? I still think, since Frenchie Color Grading, I'll link her below, showed me the overlay trick. I prefer overlay. It makes more sense to me, and it's doing stuff that I want. And if it's too contrasty, I can just do an additional adjustment, adjustment layer or adjustment node, and change the contrast. If it's too, saturated, or something is too saturated, I can go into one of these curves, graphs, and control it that way. I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with Color Warper. There's something about that, the 360-degree aspect of it that still freaks me out a little bit. I'd rather have horizontal vertical control versus, that extra direction involved. But I'm getting more comfortable with it. I work faster, and my brain works using these graphs better. So what do you guys think? Do you like the new tools that Davinci Resolve has got? Do you even mess with color density at all? Is it a thing that you care about? I mean, in theory, you could go into color density, and if you want red to be rocking, you just go into hue versus lume and bring it down a little bit, and all of a sudden there's your dense red. I don't hate it, but I just think overlay is just too good of a tool. I feel like that deserves its own little window down here. Anyway, like, share, subscribe. Catch you next time.